Hello, everyone, and welcome to Police Off the Cuff, Real Crime Stories. I'm your host, retired NYPD Sergeant Bill Cannon, a 27-year veteran of the NYPD. Yesterday, Rex Heuermann, known as the arrested suspect in the Long Island serial killer case, had a court appearance. And it seems to me that the spotlight was stolen from Rex Heuermann, and it was put on to his wife, Ellerup, and her attorney, Robert Macedonio. And why do I say that? Well, first of all, she looks a lot different than she did when he was first arrested. Is this a public relations ploy by her attorney? But the biggest thing that I find a little bit, more than a little bit strange, is that she signed a documentary deal with a company to follow her around and shoot a documentary. The company is called Peacock. So you see that camera. So I have some serious problems with this. First of all, New York State has a law called the Son of Sam law. However, that only applies to the person charged. And anyone that is arrested and charged with a crime like this cannot benefit from their crime through a book deal or anything like that. But apparently it does not apply to the family. But I still find this a little unsettling. Like, just a few weeks ago, she was accused of being a suspect in this case by attorney John Ray. Remember John Ray? There's a picture of him up on the screen. John Ray in that famous press conference with Rodney Harrison standing by his side. He accused Asa Ellerup of being intimately involved in this case and aware of her husband's crimes. So these are some of the questions we're going to ask and we're going to hopefully answer today in regards to this case. Does anyone else find it unsettling that the wife of a potential serial killer is now being followed around by a documentary crew? I find it a little bit unsettling. So guys, hold on to your seats. You're about to enter the police off the cuff zone. If you like true crime from a police perspective, then you're in the right place and you're about to enter the police off the cuff zone.
There has to be some common sense.
Yes, sir. They have the car stopped at 10th and Ranch Michael by there.
We still don't know who pulled the trigger.
According to the Daily Mail yesterday, they said Gilgo Beach serial killer suspect Rex Heuermann's wife, Asa Ellerup, smiled at her husband as she attended a court hearing after saying she wants to see evidence for herself and begins filming with Peacock documentary crew. The estranged wife of alleged Gilgo Beach serial killer Rex Heuermann arrived in court Wednesday. Last week, it was revealed that Ellerup was planning to be in court with her husband to see evidence for herself. Ellerup visited Heuermann in jail for the first time since he was arrested on July 13th and spent an hour with him last week. Also, from a legal perspective, the home that she owned, or that Rex Heuermann owned, was signed over to her for $0. And I couldn't help but think, well, that was a smart thing for Rex to do, because upon conviction, it would be open to civil suits and to be taken from Rex Heuermann as payment to the victims. So all of these things, I'm sure, are being choreographed by her attorney, Robert Macedonio. And you see up on the screen, that's the Gilgo Four: Maureen Brainerd Barnes, Megan Waterman, Melissa Bartolome, and Amber Lynn Costello. And right now, that is really what the focus should be on. But this case is getting and has gotten so much press that you cannot almost believe that, is this really about the murder of potentially 11 people? Charged, Rex Heuermann has so far thus been charged with 3. He's been charged with Melissa Bartolome, Megan Waterman, and Amber Costello. And the case of Maureen Brainerd Barnes, the district attorney, Ray Tierney, and his crew, the Gilgo Task Force, is collecting more evidence and to present that to a grand jury. And potentially Rex could be charged with that 4th case. But at this point, we'll know it'll be known as the Gilgo Four. And the names that I just mentioned is the ones that he will be charged with, the ones that are on the screen right there. The estranged wife of alleged Gilgo Beach serial killer Rex Heuermann smiled in court when she saw her accused killer husband yesterday. Asa Ellerup, she's 59 years old. She was in court Wednesday. Again, this sounds like a line that she was fed by her attorney to see for herself the evidence. I said early on in this case that I find it very difficult to believe that she knew nothing. I really do. And that's the position I take, that she lived with this monster. And he didn't show signs to her of being a monster. He was just a church-going individual. I didn't believe that. I believe he showed signs, or shows signs, of being the person that he is and was. So I'm not buying it that she wants to go to court to find out the evidence for herself. And look, again, he's innocent till proven guilty, right? And he must be proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. And his attorney, a very competent attorney, Michael Brown, is collecting all of the discovery evidence in an attempt to find holes in this case so that he can look at the evidence that he most can create doubt with, evidence that he can poke holes in. And that's what a defense attorney does. But in the meantime, this case, there is a circus atmosphere to it. I don't get it really how a documentary crew is following around the wife. And obviously she signed for probably a great deal of money with this company. And who do you think choreographed that? Do you think she has the smarts and the intelligence to do that herself? That she signed with this documentary company? No, of course not. Her attorney did that. Robert Macedonio. He's the one that did it. And he's acting, I know nothing of this. Yes. Because now, guess what? Now he can get paid. He wasn't getting paid because she had no money. But attorneys, they figure out ways to get paid. This is what they said on Good Morning America today about yesterday's appearance.
Back in court. His estranged wife also appeared in court for the first time since his arrest, and she brought a camera crew along with her. Aaron Katursky has the story.
For the first time, the estranged wife of alleged serial killer Rex Heuermann came to court to see him. Asa Ellerup said nothing on her way in or out, but was seen surrounded by a film crew. Ellerup recently inked a deal with a production company. Suffolk County District Attorney Ray Tierney telling ABC News her pursuit of a documentary would have no impact on the case.
Well, I think there's going to be a constant spotlight on this case, regardless of what deal the wife may or may not have made.
Ellerup's attorney said she plans to attend every time her estranged husband appears in court so she can see the evidence for herself. Whatever her reason for coming, Heuermann's lawyer said he was glad she was there.
He's appreciative that she's here, and listen, they were married for so many years and they raised a family together. And my understanding is that she doesn't believe that he was capable or committed these acts.
Ellerup filed for divorce 6 days after Heuermann's arrest in July on charges he killed 3 women he solicited for sex: Megan Waterman, Melissa Bartholomew, and Amber Costello. He has pleaded not guilty. He's also the prime suspect in the death of a 4th woman, and prosecutors are close to a decision whether to charge him with the death of Maureen Brainerd Barnes.
We're working through the grand jury process, and we anticipate that grand jury process being done within a couple of weeks.
The case against Heuermann includes DNA taken from a pizza box, cell phone analytics, and items seized from his home, office, storage unit, and properties out of state. Prosecutors have said Ellerup and Heuermann's children were out of town when the murders occurred. The attorney for the children says they've spoken with their father, but have not gone to visit.
No matter what happens with this case, their lives have been changed forever. They'll never get back to normal. There is no normal.
Rex Heuermann's going to be back in court in February, guys.
Eric Tursky, thanks. Hi, everyone. George Steph.
So amazing, right? So all of a sudden, there was really, she had no interest in this case. Sort of didn't go visit her husband, didn't speak to her husband. And then a documentary crew, no doubt paying her a pretty penny, is interested in this story. And all of a sudden, she is the loving wife, and she wants to go to court to see the evidence for herself, to see, because she doesn't believe the man she knows is capable of committing these crimes. She doesn't believe that. Was it? I mean, pardon me for being so cynical, but is she going to the court because she wants to see the evidence for herself, or is she going to the court because she wants to provide footage for the documentary crew who she just signed with? Pardon me for being so cynical, but I think that's a great possibility that that's the reason she's going to court, because she's making big bucks from this documentary crew. Look, all of these things are done for a reason. Her home was just, Rex signed the home over to her because guess what? If he does get convicted, it was fair game in a civil case to take it right from him. Let's hear what Banfield has to say with an interview with Robert Macedonio, the attorney for Asa Ellerup.
He is the attorney for Asa Ellerup, Rex Heuermann's wife of 27 years. He was in court with Asa today. Thank you so much, Bob, for coming back on the program. It's good to see you again. So can you sort that out for me? It seemed very odd. I really don't understand what's happening between these two.
Well, I can assure you, Asa was not smiling during the court proceedings. There's nothing to smile about. This is certainly nothing funny. She takes these allegations extremely serious. She did make eye contact with Rex for a very small period of time, probably less than 5 seconds. If there was any facial expression, it's out of nervousness. This is the first time she's ever been in a criminal courthouse, whether for Rex or for anybody else. Again, nothing comical about it. There was not a prolonged smile on her face. I sat right next to her. She didn't leave my side the entire day.
Yeah, fair enough.
Nothing funny about it.
I'm not sure that our producer who witnessed this thought that she was smiling at the proceedings or thought anything was funny. I think the impression that our producer got was that she was very much smiling at her husband, making the eye contact, and that it seemed like a good connection between them. But, many of us can't understand how what would go through a wife's mind when your husband of 27 years is arrested with just really damning evidence as the Gilgo Beach serial killer. That's why I'm trying to figure out that the smile, are they good?
Well, first of all, the first time she saw him was last week, and we keep repeating really damning evidence. The only thing that we have, meaning we, you, me, and the entire world population, is what the prosecution has put out in press statements. The defense has said little to nothing. So she's at the point now where she would like to see for herself and hear for herself what are the allegations against her husband. Nobody wants to believe that their spouse, that they laid next to in bed for the 27 years, is capable of these kind of heinous crimes. From the day that he was arrested, she has been told, she brought to the police, command center.
Not for nothing, but right here, I'm holding the 32-page probable cause affidavit. So it's not nothing that the prosecution has. And this is just a piece of it. So 32 pages, Mr. Macedonio. So are they lying? Is the prosecution lying about this? I think not.
Your husband did this. You were here. He killed this person, put her there. And she's been processing that, trying to recreate 10, 15 years ago where she was and what happened, which is impossible. So she needs to see and hear it for herself, which I think many of us would have to try to believe our spouse is capable of this kind of heinous crime. She sympathizes for the victims. They certainly didn't deserve to die this way. But again, to think that she slept next to and lived with a murderer, a serial killer, she needs to process that on her own, not believe what everybody else is telling her.
Fair enough. I would have it myself, and we're different. I would have a tough time giving a big smile. I would just be very stone-faced, I think, until I saw.
I can assure you there was no big smile, and certainly is nothing to laugh at. She takes it serious.
Yeah.
And there was no, if anything, it might have been a nervous reaction.
You know, how much of the behavior of Elsa Ellerup has been coached by her attorney, Robert Macedonio? I think all of it. She's told what to wear. She's told what to say. She's told how to behave. So all of this stuff, especially, I cannot get past this documentary crew. I just think it's totally inappropriate. If you really cared about this man, would you be hiring a documentary crew and going to court as if you're a loving wife that's so concerned with your accused serial killer husband? I have a hard time getting past that. I don't know if anyone else in the chat does. Pardon me for my past cop life, but I can't get over all of a sudden we're supposed to, oh, yes, she's very serious about this. That's why you see those cameras? They're following her and shooting a documentary. Just incredible.
Their facial expression. There's
Fair
no
enough.
smile.
Okay, that's fair enough. Let's talk about the documentary crews. We're all fascinated about the truck that arrived and loaded in all the camera equipment. And then at court today, the documentary crew was in tow. Tell me about what's going on.
I can't comment on any of that because I'm not at liberty to discuss any of that. So I honestly don't know.
You didn't work with her. I mean, I would think she would seek counsel before engaging with any kind of documentary crew, right?
I'm not at liberty to discuss any of that. What's going on with that?
There is no doubt he choreographed this entire thing. Like, you know, something, would any of us out there have the know-how to negotiate with the documentary crew on how much we're going to get paid? What are the ground rules? No, but that's what attorneys do. And of course, he's not going to discuss it because he's pretending that he knows nothing about it. Because I think that in the court of public opinion, this is an ugly thing. I think it's an ugly thing. I don't know how you guys feel.
That, you know, she was there to see the proceedings for herself, and that's why she went with me.
All right, fair to say. So the other quick question is, and it's a tough one, there have been some allegations by the police commissioner, by Attorney John Ray, that Asa had some knowledge about the sex workers, was somehow actively involved. These are pretty rough allegations. Just want to get your thoughts on that.
My thought on that, and then she spent a good time, you know, listening to John Ray and his press conferences and also the numerous podcasts that spun off from that. John Ray has spent the past 12 years, and Rex Heuermann is the third individual he's accused of being involved in the homicide of his client. He first accused businessman Jimmy Bissett. Then he went on to former police chief James Burke. Now that there's been an arrest of Rex Heuermann, he now wants to have Rex Heuermann tied to these. John Ray is looking for a civil defendant to attach to his client so he could recoup some of the tens of thousands of dollars he spent out of his pocket. Asa Ellerup is not involved in this, was not involved in this, is not a suspect. The DA's office has emphatically stated at their numerous press conferences and bail applications, she was not in the jurisdiction when these crimes took place. She is not a suspect. She was out of the country, either in Iceland or out of New York State when the alleged homicides took place. So even, hypothetically speaking, she knew about sex workers. She's not alleged to have been involved in knowing about any of the homicides. It's two different factions.
Yeah.
And I can tell you, she didn't know about sex workers. There was no sex workers at the house when she was there. It's just John Ray, a figment of his imagination, creating stuff to, honestly, the press gives him more attention than he deserves.
Well, Bob, you are a good advocate for your client, and I'm very appreciative of you being on with me tonight. Thank you. Thank you for watching.
So that's that's Asa Ellerup's attorney, Robert Macedonio. Knows nothing about any of this stuff. But, you know, when John Ray did the press conference with Police Commissioner Rodney Harrison, the news, the media ate it up hook, line, and sinker. So many people said, new suspects, Asa Ellerup is involved. And now, if she was involved, say, and again, I'm keeping an open mind with John Ray until that information is vetted by the Gilgo Beach Task Force, some of the things can obviously be vetted, then we got to say that right now it's an open allegation. But if Asa Ellerup was involved, would she be getting involved right now with a documentary crew that's shooting this documentary? Yeah, you had Rodney Harrison on the screen there. Would she be getting involved in this if she felt that she was this, that she has no culpability whatsoever? Would she? I mean, that's a question I have. I don't think she would. And she seems very confident, and her attorney seems very confident that she has no involvement in this. Because if you did, you're putting yourself out there. You're opening yourself up to questions. What do you think? I don't know. I just, can all of these things be true? Can John Ray and the four people, well, two, he took affidavits from, he said he had a total of 4 witnesses and new people are coming in all the time. Would Asa Ellerup, if she was involved, if that story he told about the police detective and a woman who fit the description of Karen Vergata and the woman who was the witness, who was African-American, gave this information, if it were true, would Asa Ellerup now be getting involved with a documentary crew? I have that. That's a question that I have. I don't know.
Suspected Gilgo Beach serial killer Rex Heuermann is back in court today. He is charged with the murders of 3 women and is a prime suspect in the murder of a 4th. And for the first time, his estranged wife attended his appearance today. Our own Jody Goldberg is live outside the courthouse in Riverhead, Long Island, with the details. Jody.
Chris, good afternoon to you. It's the first time we've actually seen Asa voluntarily show up for him. We've been hearing more about her in recent days. We confirmed last week she visited him rather in court. She visited him rather in jail. And in this video, you could see her in blue walking inside the courthouse beside her attorney. It happened a little after 9 o'clock this morning. And her attorney says she plans to be present for the criminal case from here on out. He also says Asa only knows what's been reported in the media about this case, and Heuermann was leading a double life. Now, the suspected Gilgo Beach serial killer has been held without bail since his July arrest, and he pleaded not guilty to the murders of 3 sex workers whose remains were found buried and bound in burlap sacks near Gilgo Beach more than a decade ago. DA Ray Tierney, who is prosecuting the case himself, says there's a tremendous amount of material that they're strategically handing over. And today, Heuermann's attorney got 13,000 photos. That's 13,000 photos from the search of his house, storage units, and office. The team who represents him says he looks forward to defending himself in court.
A great many things have been turned over. Primarily today, what we turned over was all of the lab work that was done in the case, as well as the underlying notes pertaining to that lab work, which from the time of the investigation up until the arrest, I believe. So that has been turned over. We turned over a lot of subpoena returns as well, as well as a whole bunch of other stuff. Gigabytes worth of materials.
There's nothing he was doing other than going to work every day, spending time with his family and supporting his family. That's the reality.
And Chris, as you mentioned, Heuermann is in fact the prime suspect in the murder of a fourth sex worker. And the DA today told us they're wrapping the case in the grand jury soon. Asa and her attorney left without commenting. Heuermann is due back in court on February 6th.
So, Michael Brown, Rex Heuermann's attorney, sharp guy, good attorney. You could see he's very confident. He knows his stuff. But is that he's just going to work every day, supporting his family? How about that he was searching child porn sites on his computer? You know, and as I said, this 32-page probable cause document that anyone, including Asa Ellerup, can pull up on the internet and print it out. It's not the press that's giving it to you. It's not the press reporting. It's published by the Suffolk County District Attorney's Office and the Gilgo Beach Task Force. No, he's not going to work. He's not a good guy, all right? Professor Mike Geary always uses the term consciousness of guilt. Do people that don't have consciousness of guilt use burner phones to set up dates with escorts? Do they do that? Why would you have a burner phone? Because you're committing a crime is the answer. And you're trying to get away with committing this crime, right? So then why is he using a burner phone? I mean, how about when we talk about it? And of course, we can argue this, and the defense attorney, Michael Brown, is going to argue this. How about some of the strongest evidence they have? Which are the hairs on the burlap on the bodies of three of the victims? Three of them belonging to Asa Ellerup, the wife of Rex Heuermann. One belonging to Rex Heuermann that was identified using a technology called mitochondrial DNA. Now, does that mean because the hair found on three of the bodies belonged to Asa Ellerup, does that mean that she's involved in the murders? No, not at all. And we talk on this show many times about transfer evidence. If you live with someone, chances are their hairs are on your clothing. Their hairs are in your car. Their hairs are, and other DNA samples are in your household belonging to your friends and family. So the hairs from Asa Ellerup, absolutely, they got transferred onto the burlap, the camouflage burlap. But that's very powerful evidence. And of course, we talk about the vehicle, right? And how that was the first generation, they called it, right? The Chevy Avalanche, right? The green in color. And that it was identified by an eyewitness. And again, that David Schaller, the eyewitness who was the boyfriend of Amberlynn Costello, he had some credibility problems when he made those statements. He was a drug addict. He potentially was a pimp. So yeah, there's always could be doubt cast by the defense attorneys. But there is a great deal of evidence in this case. Even, and we talk about what will the defense be that Michael Brown will use to represent Rex Heuermann. True crime time. Bill, Rex the Hex has been at this a long time. Serial killers don't simply stop. They get smarter. He just had to find another dump site. Well, true crime time, we don't know that. We can just really go right now on the evidence we have. And yes, many people think that Rex Heuermann started much earlier than these cases. The first case, if he in fact committed the murder of Karen Vergata, was 1996. So that was 27 years ago, right? So was that really when Rex Heuermann first started doing this? I think not. I think that Rex Heuermann probably started doing this when he was a lot younger. So are there bodies in other locations? The police and the Gilgo Beach Task Force are doing their best to uncover this. But let's get back to the point of what will Michael Brown, attorney Michael Brown, what will the defense be for Rex Heuermann? How is he going to attack the evidence that they have in this case? There he is up on the screen. He looks good. He looks sharp. He's in shape. You know, he's articulate. This is a very difficult case for a defense attorney. I mean, think of how long the prosecution has had to put forth this case, to put forth this evidence. They just handed him 13,000 photos. How long does it take to look at 13,000 photos? I bet you can't even do it. I don't think you can look at 13,000 photos. Some of them must be, just repeats of the same item and from a different angle or a different perspective. But 13,000 photos. And then, of course, all of the forensic evidence, all the search warrant material. How about all the digital evidence? The defense will need their own digital experts to dig through this digital evidence. And of course, one of the things that Michael Brown will probably try to do is say, no, this wasn't Rex Heuermann. This was someone else. Or could Rex Heuermann have had an accomplice? Right? You heard them at one point pointing the finger at the corrupt chief of the Suffolk County Police, James Burke, who took a morals arrest very recently, did 4 years in prison for beating up a perp. So they were trying to stick it on him, you know. The Shannon Gilbert case. Everyone that follows this case is bothered by that because, again, is that part of Rex Heuermann's body count? Many people don't think so. It was never ruled by the Suffolk County medical examiner that in fact was a homicide. However, Dr. Michael Bodden, who was hired by John Ray, attorney John Ray, and the Shannon Gilbert's family, he basically came up with the same results in his autopsy. It was inconclusive, but then he said the hyoid bone was broken, so more consistent with what he would consider a homicide. So he almost contradicted himself. He said it wasn't a murder, but yet because the hyoid bone was broken, he was going to rule that it was in fact a murder. So, you know, it's, again, the defense casting doubt. The old acronym BARD, B-A-R-D, beyond a reasonable doubt, and that's the prosecution's job, to prove Rex Heuermann guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. The DNA that they collected on that pizza that gets so much, the surreptitious collection of DNA on a discarded pizza box that had crust in it that apparently Rex Heuermann had eaten because it matched his DNA. And that DNA matched one of the hairs on the bodies. How could that happen? How does a defense attorney explain how the hair from the defendant wound up on a body that was dumped in Gilgo Beach 12 years before? How can they explain that? Is there a way that a defense attorney can explain that to the satisfaction of a jury? I don't know. I don't know if that's a possibility, but of course they're going to be doing that. That's what they're going to be doing.
Suspected Gilgo Beach serial killer due in court today. Rex Heuermann, the man charged with those murders of 3 women.
And of course, this is from yesterday. This is, again, News Nation.
Who were killed more than a decade ago, is also the prime suspect now in a 4th killing. Laura Engel live outside the courthouse in Riverhead, New York, with an update on a case that's captivated Long Island residents and the nation for years. Laura.
Good morning. You know, while today's court appearance by Rex Heuermann is considered a conference, not a hearing, we are expecting a key moment to happen inside of the courtroom here behind us this morning. His wife, Asa Ellerup, is expected to be here today for the very first time for one of his legal proceedings. This after her very first jail visit she had with him last week.
This was the first time she's seen Rex in person since he was arrested. I'm sure it was emotional. Like she was very, anxious up all night long before, and she didn't see her husband almost 4 months, so she wanted to see him in person.
Asa Ellerup's attorney Robert Macedonio says his client is now emotionally ready to see her husband in court as he faces charges in the murders of 3 victims in the Long Island serial killer case.
The only thing that she knows about this case is what's reported in the media and what's been told to her by the police department the night that he was arrested. So she has said numerous times she wants to hear and see the evidence as it plays out in the courtroom, not listen to the podcast, not listen to the news media reports, and certainly not listen to Johnny Ray.
The Massapequa home on Long Island, where the couple has lived for decades, is now the center of speculation by some as a place where Heuermann may have brought escorts, some even insinuating that his wife may have been aware of her husband's activities.
Mrs. Ellerup was present in this tiny little home when that occurred. I have a witness.
You know how many news reporters, you know how many podcasters said blockbuster evidence? Is there any truth to Johnny Ray's allegations? And I know he has sworn affidavits, but will all of that just disappear? Now she's shooting a documentary. So where is this going to go? Where's John Ray's witnesses going to go? What are they being, I use the term vetted. Are they being vetted? Is their information being checked out by detectives? I don't know. Let's see.
First-hand knowledge of that. The witness refuses to come forward. So the Ellerup family comes forward and says, help us, give us money. What about the victims who were chopped up?
All kinds of people have been saying that she might have known what was going on in the house. She may have been taking part of things that were going on in the house.
She has no part in any of this. She didn't. To say she was home with the children upstairs, these allegations go back 10, 12, 14, 15 years ago. Victoria's 26 years old. So that would put her at 10 years old, 12 years old. To say that you have prostitute downstairs in your house when you're upstairs with your child, and it's a very small house. There are no soundproof rooms, contrary to what was reported in the media, is absolutely ludicrous. It makes no sense. It just never happened.
And it's important to note Rex Heuermann has pleaded not guilty in this case. And as you mentioned there at the top, he is the prime suspect for a 4th victim. There are, of course, many more victims in the Long Island serial killer case. The court proceedings expected to get started in just about an hour. So we'll wait to see not only about Rex Heuermann's wife being inside of the courtroom. Last time we were here, we saw victims' family members inside of the courtroom as well. We'll bring you more as we get it here in Riverhead. Back to you.
Laura, and also too, I mean, that attorney speaking about how small the house is, you have to wonder, how did he get away with it? What was happening if it wasn't a soundproof room? Oh my gosh, so many questions.
Right.
Okay. Go ahead. No, I want you to say what you want to. What were you going to say just now?
Well, what I was going to say is that, the idea of this soundproof room, I think that it's been alleged because there is a gun safe that Rex Heuermann had. We know that he had a lot of guns, over 200 guns in that house. So he had this very large gun safe in the basement. Is that the soundproof room that people are talking about? That is something that is going to come to light here in court. And one of the key notes that Robert Macedonio made there is that his wife doesn't know a lot about the case. It's what she's been hearing. So she wants to be here inside of the courtroom where all of this is going to be discussed today at this conference between the judge and the attorneys. And that is definitely something that has been talked about in this case. And we just don't know if that's what they're referencing, if it's the gun safe or if there's something else. But we'll find out as this case moves forward.
Right. And I know you'll bring it to us. Thank you so much, Laura. Thank you.
So, as I said earlier when I first started the show, I think the court hearing was really was supposed to be about the case. And really the spotlight was stolen by Asa Ellerup and her attorney, Robert Macedonio, because here she walks into court with a documentary crew from Peacock. And then in the courtroom, she knows every single eye is upon her and her behavior. And she smiles at Rex. Allegedly, according to a producer from News Nation, she smiled at Rex. And again, would a grieving wife finding out about her husband possibly being the Long Island serial killer, would she get a contract with a documentary crew? I'm asking you guys in the chat, honestly. I would like to know that, because I find it to be, is it part of the world we live in now? This internet world? You know, is that what it's part of? Is it that everything is put out there? I find it distasteful. This was supposed to be really just a court hearing that was going to discuss future dates. They were going to discuss discovery material. And because the wife of Rex Heuermann showed up, it became more about that than the actual court case and the actual court proceedings. So I want to play a little bit of what Ray Tierney had to say. And Ray Tierney, now that Rodney Harrison has basically resigned, his 2 years are up, and probably would have been asked to resign anyway because there's a new county executive. But now that Rodney Harrison, who was part of the Gilgo Beach Task Force, a huge part of it, probably was the one that started the Gilgo Beach Task Force. Now I think Ray Tierney has the spotlight all to himself. Well, we don't know who the new police commissioner is going to be till the new year, but Ray Tierney now can see a lot of the cameras that he never saw a camera that he didn't like. So he'll be back on TV a lot more times now that he's not competing with anyone. Here's Ray Tierney talking about this.
12 years in the past with, and we just want to do it in a way that we can be confident that we've given them everything, and we have everything, and we've turned it over in a way that makes sense.
Yeah, he's a prime suspect for a fourth possible murder. Where are you guys with that?
So, yep. How are you? So the grand jury is continuing, and the grand jury in that matter is continuing. We anticipate it concluding shortly, and once it does, and if the grand jury acts, we'll make comment on that. But we won't do so until the grand jury process has concluded, just like we did with the 3 charged crimes.
Is there the grand jury is done?
There's an outside date, which could be extended, but
when you say shortly, is that days, weeks, or months?
Shortly. Well, grand jury, you go where the evidence takes you. So, especially when you're at the end of an investigation, you're bringing in, extraneous matters and potential witnesses, and that's not always, subject to your schedule. So you sort of have to work through that. So we're going to, tie all those things up, and then when we're concluded with it, we'll bring it in. But we're not gonna set a time to it or a specific date to it, because it's it's evidence based. It's not time based.
Do you feel like you have enough evidence to charge him in the fourth?
It doesn't matter what I think. It matters what I can do and what I will do. So, or what we will do. So we'll wait until that process is concluded. And it's just a process that you have to work through that, we haven't done so yet.
Is your office looking at other possible suspects? The grand jury?
I'm sorry?
Sorry. At this point, do you expect to extend the grand jury?
No, we don't expect that.
Where are you with the other murders?
So as we said right from the onset, this case, this initial investigation had to do with the Gilgo 4. We've charged 3 out of the 4 victims, which were primarily known as the Gilgo 4. That 4th case is winding down, and since we've become overt with the announcement of the original indictment, we have been working on those other cases and investigating it. That investigation will continue.
So there's no grand jury for the other 6 sets of remains?
The specific grand jury which we're working on pertains to the Gilgo 4.
And one follow-up question. You're very aware there was a press conference where the police commissioner, Rodney Harrison, attended with John Ray, a private attorney. He put out a statement after that. Have you looked at any of those affidavits about whether Rex Heuermann might have been tied to Karen Borgata, the Fire Island Jane Doe?
Yeah, so as I said, I did release a statement with regard to that. And with regard to what we look at a great many things. We don't disclose what we look at.
So he was just asked, and that was Mary Murphy from WPIX. Great question. She asked him, which he was livid about the press conference that Johnny Ray did with Rodney Harrison. Rodney Harrison stood by Johnny Ray's side as he presented the evidence of witnesses he has and affidavits that they did. And she asked him, have you checked into that? And he seemed like he stuttered a little bit. He got a little bit uncomfortable with the question, but he really gave almost like a non-answer. But I don't think he wants to say, oh, no, well, we'll never check that out, because that could be asked by the defense attorney when this goes to trial. But Ray Tierney was livid in regards to that press conference. And now what he said was they're going to concentrate, the grand jury will concentrate on the Gilgo Four, and that's Maureen Brainerd Barnes, Megan Waterman, Melissa Bartolome, and Amber Lynn Costello. And thus, not charged has been Maureen Brainerd Barnes. And they're working toward having enough to charge that case also, the case of Maureen Brainerd Barnes. And they're concentrating that you heard him say, what we're concentrating on is what's known as the Gilgo Four toward the grand jury. Because now, well, what about the 7 other bodies? Are you going to look at that? I think what they first want to do is get the case of the Gilgo Four and get that trial started. And then they can continue to investigate these cases. What if you can get Rex Heuermann convicted of these 4? He's not going anywhere. He's going to prison for the rest of his life if he gets convicted, right? Might he talk after that? Might he? He's got nothing to lose, right? There's no death penalty in New York State, so he's got nothing to lose. Might he talk for better prison privileges? Might he? Yeah, the answer is yes, he might. So maybe that's the plan. Because with his cooperation, if he confesses and admits to certain things, it makes law enforcement's job that much easier to do that, you know? This is Police Off the Cuff, real crime stories. If you like real crime, true crime from a police perspective, then you're in the right place. And if you're not subscribed to us, I don't know why you wouldn't be. Go on our YouTube, hit that subscribe button, give us a thumbs up, and ring that bell. And if you want to contribute to us in a financial way, we have a Patreon with 3 different levels. And we also have a YouTube channel members with, count them, 5 different levels. And you see the folks in our chat in the green font. They're our friends, our family, our subscribers, and they make this show possible. And they make us excited about doing this show. So again, if you're not subscribed, go on our YouTube and hit that subscribe button. Let's play a little bit more Ray Tierney, what he has to say here.
There's an investigative purpose behind that. So we've talked to, I could tell you we've talked to hundreds of witnesses, but we don't disclose who we talk to, and that's just a policy of ours. So we're gonna maintain that policy.
Those 75 pages that haven't been turned over, you said they were from the commencement of the grand jury. What do they pertain to?
Well, I mean, I think you can glean from the discussion that that we've turned over all aspects of the grand jury pertaining to the 3 charged cases. So that would leave something out, and I'll leave with that what that is.
So it relates to what's ongoing.
Yep, it relates to the ongoing aspect of the grand jury. Absolutely, Grant. Yes.
Hi. Are you looking into other states as well?
So I have jurisdiction in Suffolk County. My jurisdiction ends at the Suffolk County line. So we're looking at what happened in Suffolk County. Through our investigation, obviously we've learned a lot about the defendant and his movements and other things. So we're ready, willing, and able to share that with our law enforcement partners in other jurisdictions. They would control that investigation, and we have talked to other jurisdictions about this case and many other cases. But just like I wouldn't appreciate other jurisdictions talking about my investigations, I'm not going to talk about, what may or may not be happening in California or Florida or any other place.
So that's Ray Tierney talking about the case again. The grand jury is concentrating on the Gilgo 4, and and then someone just asked him about, well, what about the cases in Nassau County? And he really didn't want to comment upon that because the Nassau County cases are not his jurisdiction, and the Nassau County cases will be, if they can come up with the evidence to charge the bodies that were in Nassau County, then surely there will be a prosecutor and investigators from Nassau County, perhaps working hand in hand with the Suffolk County Police. Now, so much you could see by Ray Tierney's body language in regard when he was asked about Rodney Harrison and John Ray in regards to the allegations made just a few weeks ago in regards to witnesses that John Ray has that's put Asa Ellerup in the middle of this mix, totally involved. And one of the things that we discussed early on in this investigation, we were a little baffled, myself, Phil Grimaldi, Mike Geary, Professor Mike Geary, that Asa Ellerup was cleared so quickly. We were like, how did they clear her that quickly? Why didn't they wait a little longer? Perhaps even maybe use her as a witness. But they cleared her very quickly. And then John Ray comes up and says, I have a witness that'll say that Asa Ellerup, her and Rex were swingers. They had swingers coming to their house, escorts coming to their house, and Asa Ellerup knew all about it. So Ray Tierney was not happy with that. And he said, if there's witnesses, we bring them in front of the grand jury. We do it through the grand jury process. So this is a little bit of what John Ray said a few weeks ago. And again, the news media, many podcasters ate it up and said, Asa Ellerup is involved. Asa Ellerup is a swinger. But till you can prove that, she's not being charged with anything. And we don't even know if those affidavits, someone can swear to an affidavit and what they're saying, they totally believe it's true. But does that mean it's true? Because they believe it's true? Maybe they're remembering something. Well, one of the witnesses was remembering something from 27 years ago and was remembering it as if it was yesterday. So I just want to play a little bit of the press conference of John Ray, and you can see how you feel about this one.
Whatsoever. She was not a sex worker, is not a sex worker, and instead, back in the 90s, in the 1990s, she was what is known then and now as a swinger. She would have a sex partner, and they would go to certain sex clubs in New York City where they would switch.
I'm a reader of body language, and I cannot help but looking at Rodney Harrison's body language. And he's all about cooperation. He's all about being non-judgmental, but his body language deceives him. So he's doing the best he can, but his body is saying something opposite of what he's doing.
Partners with other people of like kind. One of the most important places that they would go was called La Trapeze on West 27th Street in New York, right near Rex Heuermann's office. And this was a notorious place for swapping, for switching partners. Sometimes several hundred people at a time would be involved in this place in its heyday. Its heyday was in the late 90s, right at the time that Karen Brigada is involved in this case. In this situation, this particular woman was dating a police officer from New York City who was in narcotics, a detective, and they would go to these switchy clubs, these swapping clubs. At a certain time, at or about Valentine's Day of 1996, I believe, the couple went to La Trapeze, and I think it was on the wall at La Trapeze where an advertisement was placed to go to a house in Massapequa Park for partying, for switching, for swapping. She went with her boyfriend out to Long Island, but before they went, her boyfriend picked up a woman in New York, in the city, who had apparently just gotten out of jail, and she was disheveled and hungry, and she was a sex worker. We don't know the details yet of how he came to know her, but he knew her. And she came in the car with the two of them. They went to Massapequa Park. Before they got there, they stopped at a gas station, and the girl who was with them expressed some apprehension about where they were going and why. That was all wiped out when it was pointed out that he's a police detective, so don't worry.
So there's two things from that story that are vettable. One, who is this NYPD police detective, allegedly a narcotics detective? Do they know who he is? I read somewhere online they know who he is. Does he remember this in the same way as this witness that signed the affidavit? Number two, they said that the woman was Karen Vergata, and she just got out of jail. The NYPD has records that go back to that. Can we ascertain? This was 27 years ago. Can we ascertain if Karen Vergata was arrested 27 years ago, right around when this would have happened? That could also vet this information or show that it's incorrect.
No problem. They ended up going to Rex Heuermann's house. In the house was the wife of Rex Heuermann and Rex Heuermann and the other girl. The other girl who we believe to be Karen Vergata. This girl disappears downstairs at the house. Rex Heuermann disappears. And according to our witness and other witnesses I've talked to, when men are swingers with their partner, very often they switch sexually. They go back and forth between male and female. And so Heuermann leaves the main floor and disappears either into another bedroom or downstairs. It's not clear. And the witness talks to Rex's wife. She doesn't want to have sex like she had expected to occur because our client believes because our client is an African-American woman. And Heuermann didn't like that. Ellerup, rather, didn't like that.
So there you have it. Johnny Ray putting his witness saying that Essa Ellerup is involved in this. She's a swinger. They put a sign on the wall at a club called La Trapeze to come like-minded swingers to come out to their home in Massapequa Park, Long Island. Again, this was information that Ray Tierney was really upset about. That he was upset that Rodney Harrison stood next to John Ray and entertained probably what he considered to be not very good information. And he clearly said, Ray Tierney, we only vet things through the grand jury process. And he made a statement also that we don't talk to attorneys that are working for their clients who may or may not have vettable information. We'll do our investigation through the grand jury process. Well, That's what I'm asking everyone. Is this information now? A couple of weeks ago, everyone was wild about it. Oh my God, it puts Ellerup right in the mix. And then she goes to court with the documentary crew. So I find it hard to believe. Joe Sabo, I don't think Rex will ever admit to anything. He would have to have a real reason to talk. Well, his real reason to talk would be this. He gets convicted of the murders of the Gilgo Four, and he gets sentenced to life without parole. Now, do you want to sit in a cell 23 or 24 hours a day, or do you like better accommodations? Because we can promise you better accommodations if you talk to us and you give us information on everything you've done. Joe Sabo, that's the only way I can see that Rex Heuermann would confess. But again, he's not going to confess until he's convicted, because now he's innocent till proven guilty. And he's never going to confess to anything until this case is tried in a court of law. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're looking for a great attorney in the New York metropolitan area, then Joe Murray is your man. Joe's a retired NYPD police officer and a fantastic defense attorney. You can reach Joe on his cell phone at 718-514-3855. Email him at joe@jmurray-law.com or go on his website, jmurray-law.com. Not only is Joe a fantastic defense attorney, but he's also a huge supporter of the Police Off the Cuff podcast. And we really appreciate everything Joe has done for us. You know, one of the best coverages of this was done by Mary Murphy of WPIX. And you know how they say, oh, nothing, this is all by the press. But early on in this case, the Suffolk County DA put out that, what you see on the screen right there, the 32-page probable cause affidavit.
The Gilgo Beach Task Force tracked Rex Heuermann for more than a year with physical and digital surveillance. A 32-page court affidavit claimed prosecutors had images of Heuermann buying extra minutes on his burner phones, hoping they weren't traceable. But experts did eventually trace his burners, they say, and some victims' phones to cell sites near Heuermann's place of work in Midtown Manhattan, and 4 cell towers in Massapequa Park that were close to his home.
And that was mapped out. That was called the box.
It wasn't easy, Mary. Very, very difficult work.
Once Heuermann was identified as the person of interest,
we executed over 300 subpoenas, search warrants pertaining to this individual.
That allowed the task force to check Heuermann's phone records and his online activity.
In a 14-month period, he had over 200 searches pertaining to the Gilgo investigation.
And by using fake online profiles, Heuermann also allegedly searched for 6 subjects like torture porn and child porn.
He's a demon. He's an animal. He's just somebody that should not be around other human beings.
The affidavit revealed Heuermann was nailed with his own DNA and that of his wife. After collecting 11 bottles from the family trash in 2022, investigators swabbed them for genetic material. Lab results this year indicated female hairs found on 3 victims' bodies likely came from female DNA in the Heuermann household or car. The linchpin that sealed up the case happened when cops snatched a pizza box that Rex Heuermann allegedly tossed in a trash can near his Midtown office. When scientists tested the DNA recovered from the uneaten pizza crust, they say it matched DNA from the burlap used to wrap victim Megan Waterman.
When we come back, an in-depth look at...
So, for those that say there's absolutely no evidence against Rex Heuermann, there's just some of the evidence they have against him. Can a good defense attorney create doubt in this case? You bet. There's no doubt can a good defense attorney create doubt. But you heard in the press conference, 13,000 photos were handed over to Rex Heuermann's defense attorney, Michael Brown. So what is that if not evidence, right? We don't even know the results of the search warrant of his home. Remember, we spoke about souvenirs or trophies, potential DNA evidence. How about the storage facilities he had? All of those things, we're not even aware of that yet. But all we do know is that they have digital evidence. They have forensic evidence. So when you hear Attorney Robert Macedonio say, all she knows is what the press is saying. No, it's not just the press. The Suffolk County DA's office, as I showed, put out this 32-page early on in the case when the arrest was first made, this 32-page probable cause affidavit. That's not nothing. That is evidence. That is called evidence. So you can't, so I'm baffled. We started out today, we wanted to talk about Rex Heuermann's court appearance yesterday. And as I said early on, it was hijacked by his wife, Asa Ellerup. And all of a sudden, it wasn't about Rex Heuermann anymore. It was about Asa Ellerup and the documentary crew that was following her into court. So how do you know she's going to court out of concern for her husband, who's being charged with these horrific crimes, or she's going to court so she has material for this documentary? I find that quite disturbing. And I don't know if any of you guys do also, but I find it a bit disturbing. So, ladies and gentlemen, that is our show for today. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm Bill Cannon from Police Off the Cuff, Real Crime Stories. Have a great day, everyone, and a safe one. I'll see you next time.
One episode just ain't enough.